Welcome to March's Tech of the Month. In this episode, we have new products from Silca and Continental. We have news from Canyon, which might see it change its entire business model. And we also have a bike from a brand which might actually be selling bikes in the right way.
But first, Sam, tell us about the Silca sealant.
Yes.
And what on earth is the bad day bonus?
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think we'll start at the beginning. Silca has come out with some new sealant, which is great because their current sealant, or previous now actually, was our favourite. It actually won our testing of tubeless sealants, and I think it was the only sealant of the day to plug a 7mm or bigger hole, which is
it's a pretty solid cut, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But that sealant, yeah, it worked really well. However, now they've created the second generation of this. They've addressed some pretty key downfalls of the original. Firstly, it's now injectable, meaning that you can insert the sealant through the valve rather than having to pour it into the tyre and then fit the tyre and then inflate it. So it makes the setup process a lot nicer. What you can do now is you can set the tyre up, you can seat it, check that it all works, and then inject your sealant, and then Bob's your uncle. The other thing that they've done is you now no longer need a replenisher. The original one essentially needed this extra top up to ensure that the latex stayed liquid rather than solidifying and drying out.
Yeah.
So now you don't need that. And they claim that the new sealant should actually last up to 6 months and even in hot temperatures, which is pretty good. Now, they are still claiming that they can plug really big holes, and they're saying 6mm or bigger. And actually, given how the previous sealant performed, I'm inclined to believe them. But we'll be keen to test it, and we'll certainly be keen to test the injectability of it. And the fact that it's still maintaining the same idea in terms of using recycled carbon fibres, single-strand carbon fibres, as the way to clog the holes. I'm expecting this to be really good, and it seems as if they have targeted essentially the two things that made the old one not so great. Now, on to that bad day bonus.
Yeah,
Silca,
I love this. I think this is brilliant, by the way.
This is
quite a clever marketing ploy, I think.
And it's exactly that. So what Silca have said is that for any athletes racing in the Lifetime Grand Prix events, if they get a puncture and they are running the new Silca tubeless sealant, Silca will give them $500.
Important we note, though, that is Silca-sponsored athletes. So you can't just make a quick buck by slashing your tyres in a race, unfortunately. Everyone in the CW team did quickly look into that. And yeah, we looked into the definition of athletes and came to the conclusion that that was not us, unfortunately.
Certainly not. Certainly not. But yeah, I mean, as you say, great marketing line. It will be really interesting, though, to see if anyone actually does fall victim.
I think that's the thing, how expensive will this marketing strategy be? I don't know how many. It'd be interesting to do the maths on how many riders they sponsor and see if they. I expect we'll probably hear about it in months' time if it's a small number, and if it's not, then maybe it'll be kept slightly quieter. But we will definitely be on the lookout either way.
Absolutely. So we're yet to get our hands on the sealant, but rest assured, as soon as we do, we'll be probably going for some long-term testing. The fact is, to test a 6-month plus claim, we have to be testing it for about a year.
Yeah, definitely.
So
definitely.
we'll keep you posted on that.
And a final note on the price as well. We're looking at about £42 or $42 per litre, which on the surface may seem sort of pretty run-of-the-mill premium sealant, but actually, if that 6-month claim is genuinely correct, then I think actually it really enhances the value of the product. I mean, compared to something like Orange Seal, which when we tested, I remember you saying, Sam, that you were quite surprised at how regularly they suggest you change the sealant.
Yeah.
You know, this could prove to be actually quite good value, even if it's not the cheapest. Next up, Sam, I believe you've got something that could prove to be incredibly popular in the cycling industry. What's been released this week?
Not only this week, but today.
Today? Yes, sorry, you're right, today.
4th of March. Grand Prix TR. Okay, so this is not a GP 5000.
Yes.
It's not a GP 5000. It is literally the Continental Grand Prix TR.
Okay.
All right. Now, this is a new road tyre from Continental.
Yep.
And I'm actually going to go straight into some specs because I think this is kind of interesting. It is a tubeless ready tyre, and it does incorporate the black chili compound, which we've seen on the GP 5000 range. But the sizes available are 25, 28, 30 and 32.
Okay.
Quite an interesting set of ranges there for a tubeless ready tyre. My thought...
25's narrow.
Yeah. My thought would have been that they would go 28, 30, 32, 34.
35, or 35 even.
Or 35, yes.
Interestingly, actually, the bike shop I used to work at, or most recently at least, the mechanic famously within the shop refused all 25mm tubeless. It would not matter what combination of rim tape, rim and tyre you brought to him, he just wouldn't do it.
Well, to be honest, I totally
It proved to
understand
be
that.
more headache.
Yeah, because you've kind of got to have the pressure so high that should you get a puncture, you're just going to leach all of your sealant out, or it's just not going to work at all. So I don't blame them at all. But this new tyre, it's not actually aimed at the super high-end, you know, TTTR, ASTR kind of range. This is made to be a more affordable, versatile option for people that want their kind of gateway into premium tyre technology. So I kind of really like what Continental are trying to do with this tyre. They say that the key features are that it has reliable durability, smooth rides in various conditions, good rolling resistance and strong puncture protection. So it really is that all-round tyre that's made to deliver on a whole bunch of different parcours at kind of different times of year.
Yeah, so presumably we're kind of looking at an intermediate here between the GP5000 and, you know, but obviously far more supple than the dreaded gator skin, for example.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. Now, at the time of filming, we don't actually have the prices for this. However, we are told that it will be mid-price, making it an accessible option in the premium road market. So yeah, I think this is a nice option. I have a pair of these in 30mm, which is my preferred size at the moment.
Soft.
And yeah, I'm going to be really keen to see how these, one, how they fit, and just how they feel out on the road.
100%.
Now, Joe, I want to throw a question to you.
Yes.
I want to ask what your thoughts and opinions are on using a phone as a head unit rather than a dedicated head unit.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, that, isn't it? I think head units have obviously been in the news quite a lot recently. We've had the 1050, we had the Element Ace, which was huge. I think that was pretty widely agreed.
Yeah.
But the thing that it always seems to come back to whenever I test a head unit is they're still a little bit slow and they're still not as powerful computers as what we carry around in our pockets every single day. And in some cases now, they're nearly as big and as heavy, in the Ace's case, as plenty of smartphones on the market as well. So there's definitely a case for it. Obviously, there are the arguments of mounting being a little bit more tricky, especially if you've got an expensive phone. There's the arguments of battery life. But I think, yeah, I think, to be honest, the gap is certainly a lot narrower now between a smartphone and a head unit than it ever has been.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think you're right in that a phone is packed full of technology, and you do just need to unlock all of that technology. But what I think is also interesting is that we're seeing head unit manufacturers like Garmin and Wahoo start to include features that already exist on your phone.
Yeah.
And it could be things like, you know, being able to control Spotify, well, you can do that on your phone.
Yeah.
Garmin with the 1050, obviously having Garmin Pay, you've probably already got Apple Pay set
Google
up.
Pay, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think the GPS power that you have within a head unit is much stronger. It can connect to more satellites and you can get a better lock. But your phone, I think, does still make a lot of sense. And the other thing to consider, actually, on your point about mounting, because recently I took delivery of a quad lock.
Yeah.
It was actually rock solid.
Yeah.
It worked really, really well.
I think there's certainly good options out there. I think the other thing that's obviously really important to note is a lot of these head units are serious money.
Yes.
Like, they're really not cheap. I mean, like, a premium head unit is very easily £300, £400, £500 now. In some cases, more than that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't want to shell out, and actually using the thing that's already in your pocket that most people these days have.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are new to the sport, which typically might be those who are doing, you know, less long rides as well. I think there's certainly more of an argument perhaps than there would have been a few years ago.
Agreed. And like I said, phones have so much capability within them that ultimately what you need is an app to be able to unlock all of that capability and actually bring it into an interface which is kind of understandable and actually to some extent feels familiar because there is an app called Cadence, which was developed by some guys over in America, and I've been using it. And one thing I found is that it has fully customized layouts, and you can you can change all the colors, the layout, the size of everything. There's over 100 different data points that you could choose between. You can have up to 16 metrics on the screen at the same time, or you could just have one if you wanted. You can do whatever you like. And with Cadence, you can connect Bluetooth sensors, so cadence, speed, heart rate, power, and it's also compatible with radars. So if you've got a Garmin Varia or a Brighton Guardia, that will connect. You connect it to exercise bikes, indoor trainers. So it's a really versatile thing. And ultimately, one thing that we all need a GPS computer to do is to navigate us. And of course, Cadence can do navigation and routing as well. So it can do a lot. And that's not even forgetting Strava Live segments. So if you want to use it for training and get a little bit competitive when you're out on the road, you can do that as well. So I think there's a lot of merits to it. And I think that if you did want to save yourself literally hundreds of pounds of having a comparable head unit with those same features, it's worth getting Cadence, because Cadence, not only there's a free version of the app, but there are also pro and elite versions that you can pay for. I certainly think it's worth trying, because you might find that you just don't need a head unit.
Okay, it is time finally to talk Canyon, because there's some pretty big developments coming out of Canyon, just in terms of what they're doing, how they're positioning the brand, their customer experience going forward, I think. So the first thing is that in the UK, they have partnered with Moloko and Veloroo, that's shops in South London and Sheffield respectively, to open 2 new customer experience locations. Essentially what that looks like is showrooms full of Canyons with full demo test fleets that anyone can basically finally try before you buy when purchasing a Canyon. There'll also be expert consultations for sort of fit. There's servicing and repairs that they will do for Canyons and all bikes as well. It will also just function like a bike shop. And you'll be able to try Canyon's latest sort of apparel lines, stuff like helmets, shoes, all their sort of apparel. Now, initially, I say that's currently there's only going to be 4 shops worldwide. They do want to expand that to 15 by the end of 2025. That's across the EU and North America. Finally, as well, there's going to be a collect and ride service. So rather than have your Canyon delivered to you, you can have it delivered straight to one of these locations and basically get them to build it for you, certify it. You know, if you're not so good with a torque wrench or you're worried about this sort of assembly, you can get that all sorted and then have someone take you through a guided handover as well. So yeah, I think really exciting news from Canyon, but I can't help but think it's a little bit of a U-turn on their business model, really, isn't it?
Well, exactly. I mean, the famous pioneer of direct-to-consumer.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, obviously this is at a really small scale when you really think about their business operations, but I mean, it's a bit of a watershed moment for the brand in terms of changing and maybe appreciating what, that kind of in-store retail experience offers customers.
And I think, to be honest, it has to tie into how expensive bikes are getting as well.
Yeah.
You're much more likely to spend £1,000, say, and be happy to buy something online that you've done your research on, it arrives, the packaging's nice, that's enough of an experience. But all of a sudden, if bikes are 10, 12 grand, and if there's more premium features or premium experiences that we will come on to, that can't just be box arrives at door anymore, necessarily. I think for some people are going to be looking for more than that. And I think
want that kind of like white glove service, to be looked after a little bit more. So I think what they're doing is really good. It's just that I really wonder what this is going to do ultimately to Canyon's prices. Obviously, there is now a third party that needs a slice of the cake. And that previously is how Canyons have been able to remain really competitive on price.
I think it's important to highlight, though, as you said, it's a drop in the ocean. It really is, because we haven't got the figures to hand, but if you think how many concept stores and dealers, something like Specialized or Giant have, for example, 15 stores worldwide is absolutely minute. But I think going forward, if that expansion continues and they find that to be sort of good for the business, I agree. Yeah, I think it is interesting. I think it is something, it can be really likened to OnePlus phones as well in the smartphone industry. They came in initially, for those who aren't familiar, they came in with high specs, really undercutting all the other major brands. And then year by year, They just slowly trickled up the price until they had that brand recognition and could afford to charge a similar price. And as we'll come on to now,
Yes.
similar prices are on the way for Canyon to the other big names.
Exactly. So, towards the end of last week, Canyon launched MyCanyon, which is this kind of more bespoke design, specking, fitting service that they're going to offer people. And it kind of makes, I kind of love this because for so long, I've always been talking about the fact that there needs to be a brand that goes down that like Porsche configurator route. I spend far too long on the Porsche configurator, I won't lie.
That's revealing.
But ultimately, when bikes are becoming this expensive, you know, you want to be able to play around. I can genuinely see a world where you can have people going onto the configurator and specking up exactly how they'd want their bike, and kind of, you know, it's a bit of a gateway drug into a brand, isn't it?
So, yeah. No, I do know what you mean. I do know what you mean. But I think the things to go over is what exactly does it offer. So to break this down then, and I will need to go into more detail, essentially, on the surface, the cynic would say it's essentially 13 different colourways.
Yes.
Right? Canyon is allowing a sort of customisation process for these bikes, as we've said. So what will you actually be able to change? Well, you can change the group set, you can change the wheels, you can change the saddle, and you can change the bar and stem you can shorten the stem by 10 millimetres, or you can lengthen it by 20, which I think for most people is probably enough.
Yeah.
And I must say as well, that is something I've been saying that they should offer for literally ages. I'm so glad that they finally got that, albeit at an extra cost. Now, in terms of the 13 different colourways, that is split into 3 collections, okay? So first we've got the Fabrio. Those are 3 colourways that are different from the standard colourways, a little bit more sort of involved painting process.
Yeah.
And that basically allows you these customisation features. Next up, we've got the Mono Collection, which is 8 different designs. Now, those are multi-stage paint processes. They're a little, again, more involved, and you can choose accent colours on those as well. And then the Opus Collection is so far 2 bikes, and those are sort of the all singing, all dancing paint jobs that have been designed in collaboration with artists. So the first is done by Elena Salmistaro, and the second one is done by Felipe Pantone.
Beautiful pronunciation.
Yeah, sorry if I've offended anyone there. Those 2 designs, you can't change them, but they are gorgeous, to be fair. They're absolutely lovely. Not cheap, though. The top spec options are 1,500 quid more than a standard bike. So in terms of what bikes you'll be able to get this on, initially, it's only in the US, and it's only on the Canyon Aeroad CFR, okay? Towards the end of the summer, it will be rolled out in the UK and the EU. And then going into 2026, Canyon wants to basically start expanding that across its range. So that can go into the off-road sort of spectrum, and also they're going to look at bringing this customisation down to lower levels. So currently it's only going to be on CFR products, and then we'll move down to sort of CFSLX products after that. But yeah, I think all in all it's really interesting, but I worry that they might not have gone quite far enough with the customisation, because this is not the same as like a Project One build, is it, from Trek?
But then arguably also doesn't cost as much as a Project One build. So I think that's important context. I think it's nice what they're doing. I mean, they're clearly trying to go down this, when you think about the in-store experiences and then MyCanyon, they're clearly kind of creating a bit more of a bespoke, kind of soft touch, kind of more interactive feel to the brand.
Yes.
But ultimately that really kind of does go against what made Canyon big in the first place, which is good bikes, good prices.
That is true, although we both watched the media briefing this morning, they would argue against that. Because initially the founder of Canyon basically imported bikes and built bespoke bikes for his friends and for customers to try and give them a better riding experience. But no, I know what you mean. It's kind of, it's a move, I think it's a shift away from all-out value. But then, to be honest, if you look at the quality of the products and the innovation that brand has sort of gone through over the last 5 to 8 years, it's not like this is groundbreaking. It's been in the works for a long time, and it's more of a direction for the company rather than a big change, I would say.
Agreed. And actually, when you think about the total price of a bike plus the customisation on top of that, you're still actually comparable on price to a top-end S-Works SL8 or a Trek Madone that's completely standard. So price-wise, it's still actually competitive, but you get a little bit of your own stamp on there. And don't forget, you can get your own name tag and your country's flag on it as well, which is a nice little touch.
Which is also, you know, a quick Google search will tell you that you could do that on any bike for about a tenner.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it's a nice touch, isn't it?
It's a nice touch. Let us know what your thoughts are, though, on Canyon down below. I feel like there's going to be quite a big discussion around this.
Yes, yeah.
Now then, a quick interlude to tell you about this video's sponsor, the Insurance Emporium. If you are considering getting your bike insured or perhaps want to explore another provider, the Insurance Emporium is worth checking out. They have a de facto 5-star rating, a Trustpilot score of excellent, and a FIFO Platinum trusted service. You can cover up to 6 bikes on one policy, all of which can be protected from things like theft, loss, or accidental damage. Having anything bad happen to your pride and joy is always painful, but with an insurance policy, you can at least mitigate some of that heartache by knowing someone has your back. If you'd like to check them out, then there is a link down below, and there's also details of a discount available on their website.
Now then, we come to this month's Bike of the Month, which, as Sam alluded to earlier, is a bike that we think is being sold actually in the right way, and we'll come on to what that means in a minute. But yes, it's the Pearson Forge. So Pearson, founded in 1860, funnily enough, the oldest bike manufacturer in the world, verified by the Guinness Book of World Records.
Wow.
So their Forge is basically a kind of road endurance bike that's designed to have or to exude a racing aesthetic. So we've got a T47 bottom bracket. The frame set is made with Toray carbon fibre. It comes with 45mm Genus 2 CL45R. Good name, wheels.
Yeah.
With carbon rim, carbon spokes. Claim weight of those is 1,339 grams. That's fairly competitive. Vittoria Pro Control 30C tyres. Seat post options. This is important, which we'll come on to in a minute. 0, 12 and 25mm of offset available. Claimed weight, 7.32 kilos. And the price, with this full Durace build, £8,650. That's a lot of information, but the most important thing about this bike is the fit philosophy. So Sam, what can you tell us about that?
Well, I think this is something that's actually just quite cool from Pearson, is that now, while this bike is something that's built for the majority, similar actually to the Basso that we spoke about last month, in that it's trying to encapsulate that performance-focused, but for real people kind of vibe. I think this is going to be a little bit more endurance-focused than the Basso was.
It certainly is.
What I like about Pearson is, or what they're doing at the moment, is that they are offering buyers £200 towards a bike fit when they buy a bike. Now, when you read how it works and the terms and conditions as such, you can, and this is what I think everyone should be doing, is getting a bike fit before they buy a bike.
Yeah.
So you can go see any bike fitter, get all of your measurements, you can send that over to Pearson. They will then be like, right, that's the size you need. And then they will take your measurements and set your seat post in the right place. They'll give you the right stem length, the right bar width, all of these different things. And then when you get your bike, it's set up for you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that is the way that people should be buying bikes. Now, of course, if you wanted to do it the other way round, with Pearson's advice, work out what size you're going to need roughly. You could then go see a fitter, and then you can make all of those fine tunes yourself or with your bike fitter, and then of course you would get sent back that £200 towards your bike fit. And that's what I think is really cool about Pearson, is that it's kind of a self-admission that they don't have this, you know, nationwide network of bike fitters, but ultimately they have found a solution which means that people can find the right size bike, be fitted to it, and know that then they will get the most out of that bike.
I think, it's just the bottom line is it's still better for the consumer, and it's a way that they're helping the consumer, not themselves there, aren't they? Which is really nice. And it comes down to basically a fit first philosophy, which I think it's important to note. Any bike fitter obviously will, like, bike fitters love to say that, because of course they do. They're bike fitters, they want more business. But it is 100% undoubtedly true that if you can, having a bike fit before you go and test ride bikes just makes sense. That philosophy and Pearson helping bring that to a wider audience not just through one shop in London, I think is a really, really positive thing.
Yeah, agreed. And actually, that's another really important point actually on the bars, is that if you have bought a bike and then you have the bike retrospectively, they will swap out the bar and stem for free if it's not the right size. So again, they are genuinely just really looking after the customer. Their only caveat, if you're doing it afterwards, is that you have the bike fit within 30 days.
Okay.
Which I think is totally fair. So we've got the bike in for review at the moment, and editor of the mag, Simon Richardson, is reviewing it.
Yep.
So more details on the bike itself to come. But I think from the outset, the way that this bike is being sold is certainly a positive thing.
It is, and actually, if you look at spec for the value for money as well, it's not really like you're paying a huge premium.
No.
Compared to other brands. Of course, it's a smaller brand, it's less well known, so maybe the brand carries a little bit less weight. But yeah, in terms of what you're getting for the money on the spec sheet at least, we'll have to see how that stands up on the road. From the outset, it all looks pretty positive.
Well, there you go. Let us know down below what you think of the Pearson Forge, and when did you get your bike fit? Did you do it before or after you bought your bike?
Nice.
It's like he knows what he's doing. Unbelievable, Jeff.
Wow.